Rolling, 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 rolling. You ever get like the noisy neighbors that are like banging around while you're trying to record something? Connecticut, man.
Hey, Grandview.
Grandview.
You gonna rock?
I wonder what they do. Yeah, that's fucking fog light, man.
I don't really talk to people that much beforehand.
I'm just gonna shut up. Knucking futz.
All right, our first offsite podcast.
Yeah, field trip podcast today.
Out in Connecticut.
Connecticut.
Special guest with us. We have Ian Bick.
Ian Bick.
From Locked In with Ian Bick. Thank you, man.
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys. Yeah, I appreciate it.
This is definitely a step
Beautiful.
up from the one-bedroom apartment in Grandview, man.
Hey, you got to start somewhere. I started in my car, so.
You started in your car?
Started my car in September 2022 making TikToks. Yeah, I was doing it like 3 to 4 times a day.
You posted on your story recently. It was like you had your phone on a tripod. Like, was it like in your bedroom?
I was in my parents' bedroom, still living at home. I had still working at Whole Foods, and I was just doing that, making clips, editing it on my phone on InShot, this editing app, and did that. I was even doing clips on InShot on an iPad up until midsummer last year. I didn't learn how to use Premiere or a computer until last year, and then it wasn't until December where I actually learned how to edit the full-length podcast.
That is absolutely insane, bud.
Were you good with computers and stuff growing up?
I guess like to an extent any like modern born kid is now, with technology, but I wasn't the editing part. It confused me. I mean, some of it still confuses me, but my podcast is pretty easy to edit and you learn as you go. And the knowledge of YouTube, just like learning, you can find anything you need and troubleshoot anything. If there's a problem, you troubleshoot it on YouTube.
Yeah.
Bro, he's like the Mr. Miyagi of podcast, man.
I know.
The Mr. Miyagi of podcast. That's funny.
But yeah, like started from absolutely scratch and then, yeah.
Hey, it gives me hope.
Yeah.
Doing it in our bedroom.
Yeah.
Yeah, you got to start somewhere. I mean, you guys started in your bedroom was one step up above where I started, so.
That's right.
I guess it's a good point.
Lou's
Not in our
creepy
car.
bedroom isn't looking so bad now.
You guys have the angles and you have the mics, and I didn't have any of that when I was going, so.
I'm kind of a go-getter and always kind of overshoot the mark, so I want to make sure we get it right. But thank you, man. Thank you for doing this.
Yeah, we very much appreciate it, bud. Very much appreciate it.
I want to know, man, so for me, I grew up in a suburban neighborhood. Driving through here, it reminds me very much of Grandview and Upper Arlington in Columbus, Ohio. What was life like for you growing up?
It was, pretty normal, I guess. It was suburbs. Grew up in a private community, a Jewish community down the road called Lake Wabika. And, mom, dad, brother, dog, family trips. Bullied a little bit in school, so I went to private school. It was a Montessori school. And then from there shifted back to public school. I was just like a high energy, like not really athletic type of kid. And I liked to do theater. I was a big theater nerd. I did the musical all 4 years at Danbury High School. So that's what I did. And it was normal. I didn't come from like a family of addiction or a single parent household or anything like that. It was just a good, solid family.
Are your parents still married?
Yeah, they're still together.
Good for them, man. Nobody stays married anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah, like almost 30 years, I think. Yeah.
That's an accomplishment.
Okay, so you grew up in this like decent little town here, it's a nice town. Like this is your area over here.
Yeah. I live in Danbury. This is Richfield, but this is like basically Danbury. It's right on the border. Who did you come here with last time? You had someone with you, right?
Bruno. Our film guy.
Oh, the film guy was with you. He didn't want to come this time?
He's with his brother. They have like kind of what you do, and they do a lot of film stuff, so he's on a job.
I knew the name Bruno sounded familiar. I didn't know if you said on the podcast or if he was here.
Yeah, we grew up together. We were like best friends growing up, and then when I started to get into addiction, we separated, and then we came back together doing this, which is super ironic and full circle.
Gotcha.
So high school, what's high school like? So you're a nerdy kid, right?
Yeah, I was in the theater all 4 years, did the musicals, and freshman year, I went from like the bad kid in middle school, like the bad grades, getting in trouble to, okay, like I'm going to start getting good grades, top of my class. I did AP classes going into sophomore year. But really my first, taste of like popularity was when I threw the cast party after the musical, Annie Get Your Gun. my freshman year where I had all the seniors over, the juniors, the upperclassmen, and I started spreading my social butterfly wings. And it was pretty cool. And my parents like put up a big tent because my dad's a caterer. So he had access to like a dance floor, a tent.
So you were the man.
Yeah. So that solidified like going into, sophomore year.
So how did that make you feel? Were you always the kind of guy, like you said you were bullied, right? Did you feel like you needed to belong or fit in, or like what was that like for you? Like how the bullying and all that. I mean, being in theater, you liked it, but obviously you got some flack for it.
Yeah, I definitely like being on like the center of attention. I was never really bullied in high school. I was always bullied in middle school and elementary school. But I think all of my actions, which got me into trouble, was just like that addiction to being liked. I wanted to be liked, I wanted to be popular, and I made a lot of my decisions based off of thinking that people would not like me if I did something a certain way. So that got me into a lot of trouble down the road.
Did you get a prom date? You have a prom date? Did you go to prom?
Yeah, I went to prom. What kind of question is that?
I don't know. I'm just like curious. Like I don't know. Like if you're like a nerd in high school, sometimes it's hard to get a date.
No, I wasn't. I was nerdy, but I was popular.
Popular, okay.
Yeah, because like by the time prom was around, I was vice president in my class. I had a business already. Like that was the end of high school when you get to prom. Yeah, sophomore year is when I essentially started building like a party promoting business because me and my friend got into some trouble, got community service. I started selling bracelets for a homeless shelter, and that turned into doing a school dance, which ultimately led to me throwing club nights at a local club where I would get like 1,000, 1,500, 2,000 kids to come. And this is the club I would later come to own. But I'm 15, 16 years old, and we were making $10,000 a night profit in high school. Just, no alcohol or anything, just kids coming. And simultaneously, I'm throwing house parties at my parents' house. And
oh, yeah, that puts you right in. I mean, you're in.
Yeah, like I was running it. Yeah, I was at the top of the grade, knew everyone, very well connected. And this is, when Instagram's just beginning, Snapchat's just beginning, Facebook is kind of at its peak.
When was this? What year?
This is 2010, 11. Yeah, 2011 is when I started throwing we called them raves. And there were different themes like the Halloween rave, the Christmas rave. We did a paint party, things like that. And we would sell out these club nights at this venue called Tuxedo Junction.
So how do you get like the initial burst of people? Because I'm assuming first you're like, all right, I'm gonna try this out, or was it already just like.
I just had that reputation from the dances, and everyone was kind of over school dances because, the teachers would be there, the chaperones. You couldn't really pregame because they were testing for alcohol, things like that.
They would test?
Test for alcohol.
Sometimes they would do breathalyzers if you looked a little, yeah.
Golly.
Wow.
Yeah, they were strict. I'm sure it's even stricter now.
Yeah.
Grandview, I'm surprised we never did anything like that in Grandview.
Yeah, if they saw you a little, they'd have cops there and they'd pull you over and tell you to breathalyze you at the door and they wouldn't let you in.
Man.
So you're a hustler. I mean, it's clear to me. I mean, you said you sold bracelets at a homeless shelter.
For a homeless shelter. They were like the Live Strong bracelets.
So where does that come from?
I guess it comes from my dad.
He's the same way?
He's an entrepreneur. So he worked, in the New York City school system as an educator, became a principal, then retired and started a catering company. So I've always had that like hustler work ethic, I think, from him because he was doing both of them simultaneously at one point before he officially retired to go catering full time. But I've always been a hustler and that event planning mind. And like I just think differently than a lot of people. Like I always have to, when I have my eyes set on something, I just have to do it like immediately.
You have people tell you, did you ever run across people telling you like, you're crazy, it's not going to work?
I have people tell me that now, and then I was able to build this.
You use that for fuel? Because that's certainly what I do.
Absolutely. I mean, I remember when we moved in here, like I could show you guys the pictures. This place was an office space. There's windows behind you. It was ratty, like it needed paint, everything. And I brought my best friend in here that actually ends up working for us full time now. And he was like, when are you going to have this done? Like a month or so? I said, we'll have it done by tomorrow. And me and my business partner were in here all day from like 8 a.m. to like 8 p.m. We painted it, put everything together, got all the equipment. And obviously we've evolved even since September. I've changed. I mean, the place is different from when Lewis was first here a couple months ago. So the place is constantly evolved, but like once I have my mind on something, I'll just figure it out to do it.
Do you ever like for the haters, like the naysayers, like do you ever just like I'm a resentful little guy, like I hold a
I can be that way
grudge,
too.
and like do you ever just like just tell them like hey, look at me now kind of thing, or
Dude, I used to have so much resentment. Like when I was in prison, even getting out, like I was mad at the people that put me in prison, people that talk shit on Facebook, this and that. Like when I got arrested, and then I realized, like as I got older through podcasting and stuff, everything comes full circle. And what I have now is like that's the best revenge. I literally have a career because I went to prison because they wanted me to go to prison. So all those individuals that testified at trial that were like guys that weren't owed pennies, like that were supposedly my best friends in high school, that literally went out and said he's the worst person, comparing me to like all these like horrible people. And I'm just looking at it like, man, like I'm literally, this is my purpose and I'm getting paid to do this. And the best part is it's not I don't really talk, it's not like about the crime. I'm not monetizing the crime aspect. I'm monetizing other people's crimes, which is completely different. And we're doing good things at the same time. Like we're getting people's stories out there, the message, everything compared to other podcasts. We always have an inspirational message. We do some charity work. We take on charity type of projects. I'm doing a mentorship program with juveniles in Connecticut that have faced the criminal justice system. So we're doing things like that. But these people just don't get it, and people still talk shit. But I mean, you look at the hallway, the YouTube plaque, the photos, like that just, to me, that's a success right there. When you come into the studio, like what I've been able to build, and life came full circle because I had this when I had the club. Like I had my own office. I was always into like designing the green room and big on hospitality. And, I never thought I'd have that again. And now I have it.
So the club. You said you were a sophomore when this started, junior. So you're making, you said 10 grand a night, which has to be insane at that age. And obviously it gets you into trouble. Let's walk down that road.
yeah.
From the 10 grand a night as a kid throwing teen parties, how does the whole nightclub thing evolve? Because it's fascinating to me.
I mean, we started doing those teen club nights, and then like every good thing, and eventually you always have to evolve. So like back then, everyone started doing it, and the market became oversaturated. So it's like when you compare it to podcasting, like if someone took my exact idea that I do and replicated it, not having me as the it factor in it, if they replicated it and it took business away from me, then it would affect that business. So back then, the club owners started to get greedy and started renting it to anyone that wanted to do club nights. So that oversaturated the market, which is, like I said, it's a little bit different now because you have social media that protects like your host or the it factor. Back then, social media was a thing, but it wasn't to the point where it protected me as the host of those parties. Like I wasn't building a brand large enough for people to know that those other parties were not where it's at. So it starts to become oversaturated. We have to start to evolve. I have a couple business partners and kids from other high schools, and we decided we want to go into concerts. So we start raising money from friends and family. We got some contracts on LegalZoom. We raised like $100,000. Our junior year, going into senior year, just from friends and family to do we said we were going to do a Wiz Khalifa show. And this is after my very first show I booked was Big Sean. But I didn't get to put money into it because my friends did it kind of behind my back, fell apart, didn't make money, but I still got my name on it that it was my first show. So that's when we regrouped and said we're going to do Wiz Khalifa. So we raised money, and what I did was in the contracts was I promised everyone their money back because I was so confident Wiz Khalifa was going to be successul.
Of course, I would expect that too.
Exactly. And
especially at that time, he was like really popular.
Yeah, this was 2012 now. It would have been huge. And, the show doesn't happen because my business partner, one of them lies about his connection. We don't get him, and we go to the investors, which are mostly kids my age at the time, 16, 17 years old, who each have chipped in like $5,000 or $2,500, and their parents have chipped money. And we say, hey, we can't book the show, but we could split your money into multiple shows across like Rhode Island, Connecticut, Massachusetts with other guys that were in the concert business, because now this is the bubble of electronic dance music and whatnot. And what ends up happening is half pull out, so we have like 60 grand left, give or take. half stay in. And instead of telling people, hey, there's a risk that you could lose your money, I still guaranteed them their money back. So now we're splitting the money into shows that are not Wiz Khalifa level. So the risk is much higher on my part. But either way, looking back on it, like had those lost money, which they ended up did, if I had just told the investors, hey, I lost money, this would have been a civil case. What ends up happening is the first show loses literally everything. I thought I was making money because we were dealing with a third party and I wasn't in charge of ticket sales, so I thought I was making money. It ends up not making money, and at that point, that's like that life-defining moment where you're faced with, hey, do you tell the people, your friends, your family, that you lost their money and they may not like you, and that goes back to the fear of not being liked? Or do you lie to them and say that it did make money and everyone likes you and everyone loves you and you're the success that you were for all the years before doing the teen parties? So I ended up lying, hoping, banking that the other shows that we had planned would leverage that out and it wouldn't be a big deal and I'd be able to repay everyone the money. So not only did I lie saying it made money, but I said that they had imaginary profits. So like I added a couple of grand. So now I'm out their initial investment plus these imaginary profits, which would have been okay if the other shows worked out, but all of the shows tanked. So now I was in the whole like 60, 70K, just telling lie after lie after lie. That's when like this whole evolution of like this electronics business comes into play, where my business partner brings us fake electronics, Beats by Dre that we thought were real, and we start peddling those because that's in a lot of the articles.
Dabbling in everything, man.
Yeah.
I was just trying to make money. When you're under pressure, when you owe money, it's a lot. It's very stressful. And that kind of accidentally, unintentionally creates this illusion of a hugely profitable business, which the electronics business could have been had our eBay and Amazon accounts not got shut down for fake product.
Fake products.
So, but the timing was so awful because, you know, like the electronics, this kid that we were getting from, he would sell us a Beats by Dre for like $50 and they can retail for like $400. So I'm thinking, okay, we can offer people a 50% return on their money and we'll structure it as a loan because we have physical products. So there's no way we could lose. So I would go to people saying, give me $5,000, I'll give you $7,500 back in 30 days. Yeah, so we did it a couple times and we sold that product legitimately, but then the accounts start getting shut down. And
Is that because the product, like, how do you find out something's fake?
oh, you could tell. You
Were they that bad?
They were pretty, you shake the box. But then the biggest thing was when you enter the serial number to register your product on beatsbydre.com, and it says this is a fake product. It doesn't match. So what ends up happening is those couple people that made money, the 50% return in 30 days, start telling everyone. Everyone starts giving me money. All of a sudden, I have $500,000 from people in the bank account from investor money. I was 18, just turned 18, $500,000. I was able to clean up the 60 grand I was in debt. So everyone looks like they're getting their money back, and now we have all this money. And at this point, you know, in my mind, I didn't tell people that the electronics business is like essentially a bust at this point.
It's a complete facade.
It's a facade that like unintentionally, it just happened so quickly. Like my whole case like most Ponzi schemes, frauds you hear happen over years. You look at my case, it happened over a period of 6 months.
6 months, man.
This whole elaborate fraud scheme that they claimed, it was a 6-month, literally, it was just stupid. It was poor business management. When we got all that money, we bought a pair of jet skis. We did clothes, some trips, stupid things, but we also invested a lot of the money.
You're 18 too, like.
Yeah, we put the money into a shoe company, a website, and then the bulk of the money went into concerts for the fall. Tyga, Chief Keef, big names, and YG, Kid Ink. And the problem with the concert business, and there's 2 issues that are going on. So we're investing these money into concerts, which I think are all going to be slam dunks. But I also promise people the electronics money. So concerts that are happening 6 months from now, how do you generate a return to pay these investors now between the 6 months? So I was leveraging and you know, the money, instead of going to a bank and saying, hey, I have this much money in the account, let's get a credit line or something, let's buy real estate, let's get something. I'm investing it into the riskiest business possible. And in the meantime, I'm paying returns using that pool of money which I thought it was a loan because you could use one loan to pay another loan, like a bank. But that's where they get this whole Ponzi scheme from. I had no idea it was a Ponzi scheme, but everything's a kind of a Ponzi scheme. When you go to your money in a bank is getting used for another person. Like if you brought your cash into a bank right now, they're taking your cash and giving it to the next person, but it's still in your account. But it's not your physical cash that you're bringing. Same thing with insurance, anything. Like you're putting it into a pot.
So you get $500,000. You're in the clear with the old concert debts. Like you're good, right? Mm-hmm. So you're thinking like, all right, cool. We got a new. Like how does it fall from there?
When's the investigation
When's it like,
start?
oh crap?
So this is 2013 now. What happens is all those concerts in the fall, these ones, rather than the first set of concerts, these ones were all going to make money. But because of a series of unfortunate events, they all lost drastically. Chief Keef not showing up. On a night we would have made like $60K.
Who's communicating with Chief Keef?
Yeah,
like
who's your guy?
Team?
You go through all these shady figures. There was no team. It was no structure. It was just a bunch of kids in a business we should not have been in with taking advantage of costs through the roof. I opened up my first club at that point called Sky Bar, which was the front room of Tuxedos. Put $100,000 into that. Every contractor you could think of was ripping me off, even Home Depot. Like they charged me like $5,000 for some window installation, which did not cost $5,000, but they ended up installing. I got lucky; they installed the wrong windows, and I was like, "These are not the numbers," so I didn't have to pay them.
So even Home Depot's trying to get on the scam, man.
Yeah, they're a painter. Guys are just walking on the street. Hey, you need a painter? I'd be like, yeah, sure. And then they'd send me a bill for $4,000.
Man, dude, 18-year-old kid.
I mean,
bud.
to be fair, I guess I would probably do the same thing.
I was working in a donut shop for $5 an hour.
Yeah, I know.
Not worrying about a thing at 18.
It's impressive,
bud.
man. Like
it was, and that's why like everything I went through prepared me for this. Though now I do a lot of the work myself, or I'll subcontract out to friends. You know, I do a lot of even when I owned the second club, when I went through owning the club during the investigation later on, I did all the work on myself, but that was because I physically didn't have the money. But so all the concerts failed drastically just from a series of unfortunate events.
Did anybody show up to any concerts? Like, is there any big names like that showed up?
Tyga showed up. He was kind of a dick. Tyga showed up. Kid Ink showed up. There was one Kid Ink show where, we sold all the tickets and we forgot to collect the openers' money, the opening rappers. So we lost on that. Another show, it was no one promoted it or the promoter quit or something. So we had to go to the mall and give out free tickets just for Kid Ink to perform. We had to pack the room, just stupid stuff. So we lost all this money. Now it's December. This is like 7 months later, 2013. No one's getting paid back their money. Everyone's upset. The kids that invested, say, $2,000 that now think it's $20,000 because they kept rolling it over and rolling it over, they're all pissed. And so I go to a lawyer, a family friend lawyer, and he says, don't worry, I got it covered. Give me the names and numbers of like everyone that's owed money. What he does is he sends, this is where this is the second defining moment, because he says, don't talk to anyone. I'm going to send a letter to everyone. He sends a letter to everyone saying, Ian's company is in trouble. We're evaluating everything. Stay tuned. He then sends a second letter with the dynamics saying, okay, so say you invested $2,000 or loaned me $2,000 and you got $5,000 back and you got so that's a $3,000 profit, right? You then gave me $2,000 more and flipped it back into the company, keeping that $1,000 profit in your pocket. Okay. And that $3,000 turned into, say, $30,000. These kids think they're owed the $30,000, but he wrote a letter saying, hey, you actually owe us $1,000 because the business was in shambles and this is imaginary money. So that pissed off all these kids who went into the Danbury Police Department. It wasn't the parents that lost money that went to the police to investigate. It was the kids because they all thought they were owed enormous amounts and the kids all flipped quick. And the kids weren't even owed that much. Out of all of them, I think there was like 13 individuals total. One kid had $250,000 invested.
Where do you even...
He had won a lawsuit.
Okay. I was going to say, where do you even get that money?
Yeah, for Vision in his eye at a club. But the thing with his is, his was never structured as a guaranteed loan. Yeah. His was a straight investment. That's why it was a mistrial at trial. But in the feds, they can lump, even if it's a mistrial or found not guilty, they could still lump that money. So the restitution's still the same. It's so silly. the system's fucked.
Once
Yeah.
once you're in this spot where you're screwed, or you probably feel you're screwed. How are you feeling at that age? Like the investigation starts, the feds.
It's a lot of stress, man.
Like, I mean,
Yeah.
how much time did this take? What did it all look like?
Dude, it's a lot of stress because I owed Shady Figures money too. I started to owe drug dealers, local biker gangs, because I was dealing with cash now. I needed cash. I would go to the casino, try to win money to pay off investors. I'm running the club. Yeah, it's one big mess. I'm lucky I never got into addiction for drugs or alcohol, because then I really would have been in trouble.
You were around it. It was there.
I was there, but I never got into it. That's why people are always surprised with my story in that regard. Investigation starts January 2014. It's local police. Then it escalates. I got called to the Department of Banking in April 2014, waiting for me there after I testified for like 5 hours with no attorney because I'm just trying to do the right thing. Yeah, I don't know what's going on. I'm trying to do the right thing. There's federal postal inspectors waiting for me, and I meet with them, no attorney, and they try to entrap me, and they charge me with lying to them, which I ended up, winning at trial. But they it just escalated. Then it went to the FBI and the IRS, and it's so silly because the dollar amount, it's only $500,000 out of pocket. And this became a federal case. You ask any attorney, if this was a state case, the state's attorney declined to prosecute. If they ended up, taking on the case, I would have gotten probation and a slap on the wrist.
But because the feds got involved.
Because the feds got involved and they thought it was going to be an easy turnkey case that I'd plead guilty. Little did they know I wasn't the person to give up. Yeah, and I had an attorney that was great, believed in the case, thought the investor parents took advantage of me by giving an 18-year-old.
That's a good defense.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah, an 18-year-old all of this money for a 50% rate of return. Like now I have people DM me all the time, hey, do you want to invest in this? And like I hate like these people that put in their bios, like when they have fake Instagram followers and they're like 6-figure earner. Do you think Mark Cuban or Damon John or any of these guys put 6-figure earner?
Yeah, you don't need to put your
income,
your gross income on your profile picture.
Anyone who puts their income on their fucking bio is a fraud. No, I'm serious. It's like, it's all a scam. Why would you ever do that? Like most successful, or even anyone that says like number one this or anything like that, it just, even like the number one bestseller shit is all kind of a scam too. Because what do you have to sell a certain amount of books just to be on that list?
It's one of those things, like if you got it, you don't have to boast and go around and put it in writing.
And I used to always, growing up, like I used to always flash my moves. Now I keep things very private. I would always post pictures of money or successful with this. That shit just comes organically.
That's my favorite thing when you see guys on Facebook or Instagram, like drug dealers, whatever,
flex, yeah.
and they've got like $2,000 in cash, and that's every dollar they have to their name, and they're just like, yeah, check me out.
Yeah, I'm doing big things over here.
It's so silly, man.
What point you're like, okay, I might be shit out of luck here. I might be going to jail. Like, what point does it like start becoming real for you?
Not until I got my bond revoked, like 2 years later. Well, so I had a $250,000 bond, but in the feds, you don't pay money. You're signing paperwork your parents will sign to serenity bond or whatever.
And then what happens if you don't show up?
They could go after your property or assets or stuff, but it's not. There's no bail bondsmen. It's very different. That's how the state system should be. The feds determine, are you a flight risk? Are you a danger to the community? That's what they look at, and that's where you get bail or no bail. The states are, financially motivated. In state court, like you have to pay to get out. Because I had a couple local state cases, misdemeanors, where you have to pay $500 or $1,000, just for liquor violations. They were at that point they were hitting me hard because I was running the club. After I got arrested, I'm running the club. I now get this idea to reopen Tuxedo Junction with no money. I'm painting the place. I'm cleaning up the place. Yeah, I was so persistent. During the trial, I remember going to trial, and it was almost a month. I would go to the trial, get there at 7 a.m., leave at 5 p.m., rush back to the venue, do a show with like Carnage or Steve Aoki or the biggest DJs in the world. And I was just doing that all simultaneously.
It's funny, man, because before this, we were talking about like the stories that you hear on your podcast. And like, it's one of those things where it's like, it sounds like insane. Like, do you have people tell you like, no way?
The thing about my story is that I went to trial. So everything I say is well documented. Yeah. The only thing that's not kind of well documented is the prison stuff. But if someone like cracked into the Fed system or got those records, I'm sure that would all be provable because they could look at my transit history and stuff like that. But what I've learned is like my job is not to call people out on bullshit on the podcast. It's to feature their story, whatever it may be, and let the audience to decide. And you learn about their character by starting at their childhood and figuring out who they are and stuff like that. I never sit down with someone and say, hey, tell me about the time you stabbed someone in prison. It never starts like that. So let people form an opinion, you know? It's not on me to judge. And what I've learned is you can take 1 million people that went to the prison system. Everyone's going to have a different point of view and perspective. And also, a lot of the comments from people that I see, it's a time thing where people will tell stories from stuff that happened years ago, like Chomos being separated. Now people live with Chomos.
That's like the good thing is like I've learned that like if somebody calls you on something, like I call it the not an orange defense. Like somebody calls me an orange, I don't have to defend that because I'm not an orange. You know what I mean? Like I don't have to.
I never heard that one before, but
okay, so let's go to like all right, prison time.
Yeah, I went to trial. It was what the feds do is they overcharge you, you know, and then when you plead out, you'll plead to like one charge, you know. They said I was facing like 120 years, which they just like stack it, you know. It's like what they're doing to Trump and stuff. They stack all the years. You're not actually facing that time. But the news, like I would get so upset with the news posting he's facing 120 years. So like people, when they say, oh, he only got 3 years, like I'd see my friends writing stuff and whatnot. It's just crazy, you know, but that's the news and the media not reporting accurately. And so, and they don't do their due diligence. Like I had the News Times come here finally after years to, you know, write a good piece on what we're doing and stuff. I had to like, you know, hound them to come, and they finally come, and they were like, oh, you know, it said you were arrested because of the club, this and that. I was like, that had nothing to do with it. The club had nothing to do with the case. And they were like, yeah, I was reading the transcripts and the club's not in there at all. I'm like, yeah, I tried to tell them that. They just never did that. They were like, oh. So they cleared that up. But go to trial, get released on bond still for the year after the conviction. And I'm just, you know, I'm running the club and I'm going out of state as a violation of my bond. Because at the time, so in Connecticut, there's the Mohegan Sun Casino. So we would go there, hit that. And sometimes I would win $500 and turn it into $20,000 or $30,000. And I'd use that to pay the bills. I remember being in the middle. I'd win a few grand, run to the local Bank of America, deposit it into an agent's account, you know, for an artist, just so, you know, I didn't get blacklisted. Like one time I owed the Chainsmokers 25 grand for like 4 months. I was selling off coolers, pawned my car. I was just doing everything I could to stall them, like send fake wire receipts saying, hey, the money's on the way.
Don't know where it's at, man.
Yeah, well, back then wires weren't instant. It was like 24 hours. Yeah. Now you can't, like everything's instant. Oh, yeah. You can literally, Venmo, you can pay the fee to go right in. You see, when someone sends money a wire, it's literally in seconds. Even though they say on their website could take up to 24 hours, you put that through, it's instantly. Checks, you know, it's not like it used to be 3 or 4 days. Unless it's a brand new account, they might hold it now if it's a large amount. But it's just nothing like what it used to be. So I would go to the casino, gamble, come back, and pay bills with the club, and I kept it rolling. And, you know, looking back on it, had I ran the club for maybe a couple more years, I probably could have sold it because it was building a brand. But on the flip side, had I made it that far, COVID would have happened and it would have got shut down. Even if I was allowed to still run, I was on probation. I turned it around, got a good investor, but it was always underfunded. And when I realized about business is you can't operate a business with no cash flow. That was a business where you're doing 1 or 2 events a month. There's no liquor. You're banking. And if you lose, that sets you back for that month and you can never catch back up. So you'd have a couple good wins and some losses and you have all this bad debt behind you. So you can never get ahead. It was terrible. So my friends I always had different groups of friends going through these phases. And what happens is I have these friends that are working with me at the club that kind of leached onto me for the celebrities and this and that. I realized how people, that's why I'm so hesitant around people now, because I get people that hit me up, hey, introduce me to Mike Tyson, hey, this, hey, that, Those are not the people you want to be around. I have people from the past that reach out just wanting to hang around here. I keep to myself. I don't like going out anymore. I stay in. I just do different things now than what my old mindset was. And so these individuals end up calling the FBI and say, hey, he's going out of state against his bond, because they were trying to revoke my bond for years at this point. Yeah. They call the landlord saying, hey, Ian's going to prison. We'd like to work out a deal, this and that. The fault in their plan was the FBI had already tried to revoke my bond so many times. They weren't going to a new bond hearing until they had all the evidence. So it took them like 6 or 7 months. Eventually, they get everything together. They get the records from the casino. They pinpointed when I was there, this and that. And I was smart at first. Like, I'd put my phone on airplane mode, always go cash, took the train. Then I got lazy, started using the business debit card. I remember telling the judge at the bond revocation hearing, yeah, I needed $4,000 after hours. The bank was closed, couldn't get it out to an ATM, so I went to the casino to go back to pay the production company.
Like, Mr. Bick, we have a selfie of you in front of the casino at 12 a.m.
Yeah, so I got my bond revoked. That's October 2016. A month later, I got sentenced. The whole legal process, I got arrested in 2015. Investigation starts 2014, 1 year of investigation. It took 10 months to go to trial, which at the time, you look at it now, it's kind of short compared to now. Like, I probably could have stretched it more. Sure. And if COVID had happened in the middle of that, it would have been even better. But now cases take forever to go to trial, unless it's it all depends on the situation.
No, that's the worst time, because I don't have bond, because it's different in state level, but so I'm sitting and writing the whole process out in jail.
Yeah, but you know what I learned is that, back then I would think, the longer the better. But if I were to go through this all again, I would say I don't waive my right to a speedy trial, and let's go to trial tomorrow, because you're just giving them more time. There's more witnesses that could come forward. Yeah, they have a case, obviously, before they indict you, right? The feds take their time anyways, but they're even more prepared if you're waiting 10 or 11 months. Now, the state, I would say, is very underprepared because the threshold is a lot lower. I would take them to trial immediately if I was in that position, because they have less time to gather witnesses, everything like that.
To gather more ammunition.
So good, yeah.
Because it's your right to have a speedy trial.
Did you ever see the county jail before you went to prison?
So in Connecticut, there's no county jails in the feds. So if you don't get bond, so when you're processed, they don't even bring you to the holding center. It's all in the court. So you're below the court, you're processed, you have arraignment, you're done. Unless it's a weekend, they'll bring you to Wyatt, the detention center. It's a private facility for federal and ICE inmates in Rhode Island. It's about 2.5 hours from here. That's where I was when my bond got revoked. I spent there for a month. Then I started my Federal Bureau of Prisons journey after I got sentenced to 3 years and 1 year house arrest, 3 years supervised release. Went to Brooklyn. From Brooklyn, I went to Fort Dix. From Fort Dix, I went back to Brooklyn, then to Philly, then back to Brooklyn, then to Danbury.
What's with that? Why the transport back to back?
So in Fort Dix, I got caught on a cell phone. Me and my bunkmates were wrestling, and they got into the phone, and they saw the video. So they put me in protective custody at first because they thought I was in danger, and then they ended up shipping me to Danbury. But they put me through diesel therapy. So it took them a while to get. They had me sit in Philly in the shoe because I was in the shoe at the time. I did 6 months in the shoe. That's how I lost a lot of weight.
That's
Wow.
like segregation, or that's what isolation. Or whatever.
Yeah, and then protective custody too. In the feds is the shoe. It's the hole.
So is it literally just like you think, like the one concrete room with the slab and the toilet, and that's it?
Yeah, it's I would say it's half the size of this room. Same width, but this, half of it. You're doing push-ups. Rec is literally in a cage outside. They handcuff you. Showers, 3 showers a week, none on the weekends. You know what's funny? The CO that was that ran the shoe, the head CO in the Danbury prison, lives in my apartment building now, and I see him. I haven't caught him yet to say hello. He used to call me Squints from the Sandlot.
That's awesome.
That's wow.
Fantastic.
Hey, remember me? So do you get in state jail, you get a state job or you get state pay from the jail? Do you have that?
In the feds, yeah, you have to get a job. Most people just shop their job around. You have the orderly. You'll go to him and say, "Hey, I'll pay you double." to, give the job to someone else, and you give that guy the pay plus the extra money.
When you got to prison, right? I mean, call it day one.
Yeah.
How old are you?
I was 21.
You're 21. Sure you've never seen anything like that in your life. I mean, obviously you'd been around some shady characters, so it's not like you're a stranger to that. But you get to prison day one. How do you feel?
I mean, it's scary, man. Like, I would say not even really the detention center, because everyone's kind of in limbo and no one's really gone through the system yet. But in the federal prison, they're just so big, and you're just like a fish in this massive, ocean, a solo, little pond fish out there, and you can't trust anyone. Everyone tries to be your friend, but they're really not, and everyone is working an angle and has bad intentions. Everyone has an angle in prison, everyone. Even the ones that say they don't, they have an angle. And when shit hits a fan, they're not going to be there for you because they're only looking out for themselves. So I would say that was like the biggest thing I had learned.
How much, okay, this is an odd question, but so you find out you're going to prison. Like, how much of you is oh, I've heard about prison, with the rape thing, and how much of you was terrified about that? Because I was
yeah,
oh,
I mean,
man,
let's be honest. I mean, look at the three of us,
yeah, we're
right?
all smaller.
None of us are huge or buff or I know I'm not tatted up. I know for me, I had my issues in the county jail, and I mean, I had a lot of them. I know you had some too. Did you run into anything like that?
I mean, you hear about don't drop the soap and stuff. I had watched Orange is the New Black, stuff like that. But it was just very different in the feds. It was more like a college campus, the way the lows and camps are laid out. I mean, I will say I had guys like that, tried to extort me, that type of stuff, because I was a white young kid that everyone would call a sex offender until I, showed paperwork. But my biggest thing that happened to me in prison was a male guard tried to sexually assault me.
A male guard?
Yeah, he got me in the bakery. And I was working in the bakery at the Oxford prison camp, and he was this scrawny white guy, skinnier than Lewis.
Damn.
That's pretty skinny.
That's pretty skinny.
Pretty damn skinny.
He rubbed up against my butt while I'm scooping the muffin mix.
The muffin man.
I thought it was an accident. He kept doing it, and it happened a couple times. He cornered me in the walk-in one time, made me hold the tray while rubbing up against his groin with my butt.
God.
So for me, I would have wanted to hit the dude.
Yeah.
But he's a guard.
Yeah, you can't. I mean, I'm not a confrontational person. Yeah, we reported it. They removed him from the compound. Then apparently when I left the prison, they put him back on the compound. Now, I don't think he's there because I had a guard reach out to me and said, hey, was the officer you were talking about so-and-so? I was like, yeah, how do you know? He's like, that guy's a total creep, and he's not here anymore. Never followed up, never closure. Yeah, they buried it under the rug. That's what they do. That's what the system does.
So you do, you said 3 years?
I do about 25 months, I think. It's different in the feds. I think you get 21 days a year. It's more now ever since Trump signed that new law because there's programming and stuff. But it's 85% plus those extra days. But I did about 20, and that doesn't include halfway house time. So I think I got out, went in at October 2016, got out January 2019. So I did, what is that, 2017 and 2018. So that's 24 months. I did 27 months.
And then are you a hardened felon at this point when you're getting out?
No, I lost weight. I used to be almost 300 pounds. Yeah, so I lost. I was chubby. I had baby weight on before. Then I put on muscle. I was working out. I was running, things like that.
Did you learn anything in there? I mean, you're doing this podcast now. I mean, clearly you're a hustler. I can't fathom doing the shit you did at 18. All that money. I mean, Jesus, it's incredible. When you were in prison, do you think to yourself I'm going to turn this into something, or
I was always mapping out my next move, thinking it was going to be another club. I always thought that was going to be my redemption story because, you lose everything from that. You go back and you get it back. Little did I know the next best thing to that, which is even better, is turning your prison experience into a business. So I was planning to do real estate concerts. I had a whole elaborate plan. I still have the notes. They're actually in my office. All the notes. I was reading a lot of books. When you're in solitary, you can read a book a day. I was highlighting quotes, doing all this, planned everything. And when I got out, I realized this was going to be hard to pull off. I wasn't going to go get investors again. I was under the microscope, with probation and everything. So I went and got a normal job. Worked at Whole Foods.
Whole Foods.
You're such an anomaly, man, because I know when I worked at the prison I worked at, guys are always like, oh, I'm going to start a food truck. Oh, I mean, how many times do we hear shit like that? Even when we were locked up.
Yeah.
Like, oh, I'm going to be a rapper. I'm going to do this. And they're like writing stuff down. And in my mind, I was like, no, you're not. No, you're not.
Like grandiose ideas.
Yeah.
I had a ton of people come up to me so fascinated with the nightclub stuff. They would always ask, in federal prison, they come up to the fraud guys to always ask what they could do because they're getting less time than these guys that have sold drugs or things like that. So they want to know.
And then you get out of prison, and then you're working at Whole Foods. How does this come about?
Dude, Whole Foods was great, because it prepared me for life. Because you got to realize when I was owning the club before, I was living with my parents. I had no money, no credit, no card, nothing. My license was suspended. I get out. Whole Foods gives me credit. I can rebuild my credit. I can, I can get a car. I get a dog. I get a girlfriend. I get an apartment.
That's so funny. It's literally the 5 things that I talk about. Like, you come to me in a jail cell, what do I want? I want a car, a job, a girlfriend, an apartment.
And all that. Did I have loads of money? No, but I was a livable wage, and I worked my way up from 50. It was from the bottom, from $15 an hour to when I left, I was almost at 33. And they'll pay that anywhere. It's hard. They will reward hard work if you work in prepared foods because no one wants to work there. It's intimidating. It's scary. But I did leave because, things with corporate is they promote bad behavior in a way. Like the lazy people get the high jobs and it's just that's how it is everywhere. And that's how you lose the good people. Like if I ever sat down with the CEO, I was a great employee and they lost me because they didn't acknowledge that to that. Everything has to be set by their time limit. They have in mind, you got to do this job for X amount of years to get this role. Right. When you work for yourself, I don't have to wait 2 years to be the top podcast for my genre. I don't have to wait to get a studio. Yeah, you don't need any of that. You work at your own pace. Yeah. I end up quitting one day because my friend, the videographer from the club, convinces me to start telling TikToks. And my 5th video when I had COVID and I'm sick in bed ends up being my most viral one. And that's me talking about prison, being in solitary. Mm-hmm. And that starts my career. And it blew me up. And I just started posting 3 to 5 times a day. I started doing response videos. And the one thing I learned to do that a lot of you see social media influencers can't do was I was building my pages simultaneously. So every time I post on TikTok, I post on YouTube Shorts, Snapchat, Instagram, and Facebook. Every single day, did not miss a day. And what you realize is some of these people that have say, it's easy to gain followers on TikTok. So say you have 3 million on TikTok, their YouTube's terrible. They have no Facebook. Most people, if you ask them, have no Facebook. Yeah. And Instagram, it's easy to get if you're a hot girl. Let's be real.
Oh, yeah. We were talking about that on the way up.
Instagram's a grind. I've been at it for 2 years now, and I'm at almost 60,000. It's hard work. It's a grind, But TikTok is easy. I don't applaud these people that have millions of followers on TikTok. It's so easy to do, especially back then when it was starting. Yeah. What's hard to do is to maintain that, to monetize it, and to turn that into other brands. Right. The biggest thing I see is that YouTube, when these influencers on TikTok go and they make a podcast or whatever, they have a couple followers on YouTube or they can't get it to jump because it's a whole different ballgame. Anyone that's grinding on YouTube, that's who I respect. If you're able to build something on YouTube and you're following all the steps and you're doing it correctly, because that's long-term, that's when you see you have something. And the thing with YouTube you have to be careful is you don't want to get stuck in the shorts game where you're only posting shorts. So it looks like, say, you have 500,000 followers, but then you're long. Yeah. Mine is a very healthy balance where it's, I'm doing great views on my long form and I got my shorts. So you build it simultaneously and it'll come.
Do you ever, my problem is all right, so you got to put all this content out now. What do you how do you know what's content worthy?
I've never not posted a video. The only times I'm skeptical about posting one is part 2s. That's why I'm staying away from doing part 2s with people. Okay. I have a lot of guests that want to come back on. They want to say, let's do a part 2. We missed stuff, this and that. But my opinion on it is you break the story in part 1 and let that person go do other podcasts. Or it gives them the stepping stone to go build their own channel. So you see the comments, like someone like Lewis, if people are commenting saying, hey, we want to hear more about this or that, that gives him the base to go talk about on his podcast or make content. But part 2s, in my opinion, I'm bored with it. They don't really do well, and it's not the same format that's been my success because I'm not going to go through their childhood again. Yeah, and also people want to come on in duos. Like I've done like a prison guard versus a corrupt one, or like yeah, those are okay. Like I did 2 brothers that were convicted of life. Like it has to be here or there, but you have to have an incredible story to get me to like do a part 2 and to do it. And now my time is like I'm more keeping it into like the hour and to the hour and a half range, and I'm not sitting through these long ones because I'm putting out 3 episodes a week.
Yeah, it's insane, dude. You crank so much content.
The addiction, like general prison stories, you don't need that much time to get the person's story out. Unless it's like a story like mine, I could talk for 6 hours or 7 hours on a pod like that. There's some stories that are like that where it's just like an insane story and you have to have that time unravel. But most times my format is like an hour, hour and a half, I think is the sweet spot.
Do you ever have the guest that's like, I can't even pull anything, like,
Yeah, and that's what makes you, it brings you out as an interviewer. It's hard sometimes. There's people, I've had guys sit down, we get into it, and they walk up after 5 minutes saying they can't do it, and you got to wait. Because it's nerve-wracking, and we try to make it as comfortable as possible. Like you see, I do everything myself. There's not really a team. There's not like, makeup team, this and that, it's just me and the guest. But they're intimidated because I get it. They look at me as like someone that's like this person, but that's not how I portray myself. I'm just like a normal person. So when I'm sitting down with people, it's just, half the time I'm just in gym clothes, relaxing and just sitting there with 2 chairs in the room,
So go ahead.
No, please.
Please. What?
No.
Yeah.
Okay. I want to ask, and I want to rewind before we wrap up. What is the craziest shit you saw in prison? What is your best crazy, stupid prison story? Whether it involved you or it didn't.
I mean, there's obviously tons of crazy stuff that happens. Fights, saw a guy finger bitten off, this and that. But I would say like my personal story, like aside from the guard and extortion and stuff like that, was when, I got the idea. I saw at the camp guys would run through the woods to pick up bags or meet their wives at the hotel. So like you could, because there's no fence, you run through the woods, there's only one guard. So you're on a burner phone. You have a lookout at the camp and you run through the woods to go pick up a bag where you'd have like deep dish pizza, sushi, fried chicken, all of this stuff, Mexican food. We had trays of Mexican food smuggled in one time, sandwiches, everything, protein powder, crazy. Guys would literally leave to go after count. They would go run and meet their wife who would pick them up and go to the local motel. The trick is, though, you have to make sure if they call an emergency count because someone snitched or something, you got to make it back real quick. Anyways, my first bag drop, because I would like the adrenaline and taking risks, I got this idea, even though I didn't need the money. I was like, okay, pay me $100 and a phone and some food, and I'll go get the bags for you. This is Oxford, Wisconsin, the middle of winter, and I'm running through the woods in snow in sneakers and my green pants. You would put your khakis on and stuff. And I run and I go get the bags, and there was only supposed to be 1 bag. Well, it turns out to be 3 fucking giant. These guys always take advantage. 3 giant garbage bags and like a duffel bag. So I get it. I'm calling him like, dude, what the fuck? He's like, bring the bags back. When people do a bag drop, it is loaded. Like they have the protein powder in Ziploc bags. Bag drops are insane because when you bring the bags in, you have a whole team of people waiting down to bust it down real quick, get rid of the evidence. You're paying the garbage guy to pick it up in the morning to bring it down to get rid of the garbage. You're putting it in hiding spots. And it's like in the movie Longest Yard. A bag comes in, everyone's getting a cheeseburger. You're paying everyone off because it's a joint operation. Yeah. And even the snitches have bags coming in. Everyone's getting a bag or has a phone. You walk through the hallway at night, it's lit up like a Christmas tree. Everyone has a phone. So anyways, I get these bags and I'm nervously checking my phone at the lookout every time. So when you're on a bag drop, the worst thing you could ever get is a phone call because then something happened. No phone call, you're good. So I'm constantly checking while I'm holding these bags. I'm dropping them. These are heavy. And I'm running in heavy snow through the woods. I'm looking out because all the leaves are down on the trees and there's a perimeter truck, so you have to crouch down and you're listening to make sure no one's coming. You hear a noise, you kind of like jerk, So I'm running and I'm about halfway there. It's probably like a 10-minute run to go to one edge of the woods to the other. And I'm about halfway there. And I drop the bags because my phone starts vibrating. And my lookout's like, dude, get back. They called a count. So I'm like, holy fuck. And I only got like 2 months left on my sentence. I drop the bags in the middle of the woods and I book it all the way back. Come to find out there was no count, just the perimeter truck pulled in to say hello or drop off paperwork to the unit, because there's only one cop for the whole thing. After hours. You do it after 5 p.m. after the case manager leaves, counselor, everything.
Sounds really
And you
lax
could just
in there.
walk out.
Yeah, there's like a bocce ball court, a volleyball court with sand. There's a basketball court, tennis court, a track. You just can't walk out after the doors are locked after like 10 p.m. or something like that. So you get back in. I run back in. There's no count. And the guys are like, where's the bag? I'm like, well, the perimeter truck came. I got alerted, this and that. So I had to spend the next 3 days looking. I couldn't find them. I would go out the next 3 days looking for these bags. And I brought someone with me and I finally found them. And because it was cold out, the burgers and stuff stayed fresh.
Frozen. Okay, that's good.
Yeah, that helps.
So we got the bags back. But that just like your adrenaline.
Happy ending to the story.
I'm curious today, now that you've gotten through all that, the prison and all that. I mean, you're a big influencer now, like you mentioned, right? So people look at you like you're a big influencer and you're something. For me, and I know for you as well, with the felonies in the background, like sometimes I get looked at crazy. Did you experience that at all post-prison?
All the time, bro. Like when you're dating girls, like I remember being on Tinder and they were like, oh, my professor just presented about you. And like, when girls were nervous and stuff, I think what I've been able to do a good job at is make it normal. You modernize it. Now it's a cool thing to do. Yeah, it breaks down the stigma. Now I do not give two shits about the prison because it hasn't affected me. It hasn't affected credit. I can do whatever I want. I got my passport back. Like it has not affected me. I think ultimately, unless you are like a sex offender or you've killed like an innocent person, I'm not even I've had people that have killed people that were in that life, was not an innocent bystander, was someone that was like in it too, which that's like a whole different ballgame. But unless you're those individuals, I just think that the stigma is so silly. Or unless you've caused like millions of dollars of fraud or this and that. Like I have fraud guys that come on the show that owe millions in restitution and they have no remorse and they're not paying any of this back. But me, like I pay $1,500 a month now towards restitution, but that you can pay that in a lifetime. These other guys can't. Like I look at fucking Billy McFarland from Firefest, 30 million fraud. Yeah. His manager had hit me up like a few weeks ago. They're like, do you want to fight Billy?
Oh yeah, because you do some boxing, don't you?
Like this was a year ago when I wanted to do it, and now they're calling me. I don't want to. Billy's shot. He's talking about Firefest 2.0.
Oh,
you're not gonna get out there?
No, not for. But he already did the fight. It was like kickboxing. He doesn't. He barely has a social media. For all the press he got, he does not have a big social media following. He was on the biggest news organizations in the country, and I have more of a social media following than him. What does that say? It's all about likability. That's like on my episodes, it's character and likability.
You ever get tired of hearing that? Like how likable you look?
Who, me?
Yeah.
No, I don't really care. The comments don't affect me anymore. I read them because they're funny. And you have to respond to them. Like I'll have guests that blow up my phone. Yeah, I'm like, dude, I don't care. It doesn't bother me. You did a great job. It's a great episode. You need it. And then I see guests that will like comment every bad comment. Oh, this is true. Yeah, and it's great for me. I love it because then I don't have to do it. Yeah, so I mean, I get it. But that's how I was, when I first started. So I get it. This is their first experience. I think it's so cool that we have this platform that it's able to give people a voice that wouldn't normally get a voice. It's doing good, and I think it's awesome that it breaks down the stigma because now it's like, what can you say? Everyone's dirty laundry is out there. Use it.
Dude, a lot of the stuff I've done, like with the speaking in the schools and all that stuff, and like I talked about it with someone the other day, it's like, and I don't know what other term to use other than weaponized, but like everything I went through has turned into an experience I can share with someone to help somebody and get it out there and reduce the stigma. And, I've done it in plenty of ways, and it's super cool. I mean, yeah, like you're full circle. You work at a rehab now.
Treatments, yeah.
And, with what you're doing, it's the same thing. It kills the stigma. And I feel like that's what it's all about. I appreciate it, man.
But yeah, this has been cool, man.
Like, you're very gracious to allow us to do this. Awesome.
Yeah, thank you, brother. Appreciate your time.
Thanks for coming on, man.
We hug it out.
Always wants to hug it out.
I'm a hugger.
Yeah, of course.